He's already here. He's here early. Yeah, he's ready to go. Let's
You
go.
want to do Bob right away?
Yeah, why not? Why
we can
not?
punch up Bob.
You don't want to make him wait.
Then there
There
you
he
go.
is.
Hello.
Bob Angelo, cinematographer, NFL Films. So he's got a new book out that everyone should be looking into if you're any kind of an NFL fan. Bob, thank you much for jumping in with us here today. I just gave Dinger a hard time because he says he's retired, but all he continues to do is hop on TV, hop on radio, write forwards to books and the like. How are you handling retirement?
Retirement is wonderful. The day that they forced a lot of us out of NFL Films, the CEO said, "Would you like to come back and work as a network cinematographer on weekends?" And I said, "No, I'm done. I've shot my last game. The Eagles Super Bowl was the victory over the Patriots, was the last football game I shot. Why not go out on a high note?"
Yeah.
And, you know,
Go
I
out
was
on top. Billy Special.
65
Yeah,
years
the whole
old, and
9 yards. Yeah.
it hurts to shoot a camera on Sundays.
Now, Ray was showing off. I think he had 5 Emmys in his background. You only got 1 in your background there, Bob. And by the way, the book, The NFL Off Camera, an A to Z guide to the league's most memorable players and personalities. You got it in back of you there as well. How many Emmys do you have total?
21.
21.
Only
21, Jody
You
Mack.
slacker, Bob Angelo. How dare you not get that 20 seconds? Shame on
21.
Wow,
That's unbelievable.
I really hoped to get more than that, but that's I'm
Well,
proud.
how many do you have room for, Bob? I mean, you got to
you're
build
building
a
a new
house.
wing to the house to house all those Emmys.
I've only got 3 here. I've given 3 to my neighbor, actually 4 to my neighbors and friends. I gave 1 to my parents, and I never got that one back. One got broken, and then the rest are on the walls on the shelves at NFL Films.
Nice.
That's very nice.
Yeah, 21 is pretty impressive. But I always joke, as a reporter, I get access to the locker room and the coach and even off the record sessions. But everything, even for people like me, everything has a little bit of a filter because guys know why we're there. You NFL Films guys, you're on the field, you're getting that raw sort of emotion in the moments, seeing at the most could be the most exhilarating time for a player, could be a terrible time for a player. Just kind of take us into that sort of mentality and the fact that you're so close to that particular action, whether it's winning, losing, and everything in between.
And in proximity, I was even closer because I was shooting sound. And in shooting sound, excuse me, I'm not just observing action. I'm not just getting close-ups. I'm hearing what they're saying to one another, to their position coaches, to their head coaches. Pre-game, lots of times these guys have been sitting on it all week. I walk into their presence with a wide-angle lens on my camera, literally put it within a foot of their faces and say, "What's up?" or "What to do today?" or anything to get them speaking. It's bottled up. They want to say it. They want to get it out. They're done practicing. They're getting ready. They're warming up. And you'd be surprised some of the things that have come out of players.
Yeah.
In those,
but by the way, if you're comfortable with it, only if you're comfortable with it, I want you to give the Connor Barwin story because I saw because we're allowed to do that on this outlet. The radio, you probably couldn't say that, but
the Connor Barwin story. I'd rather not get to the punch because I really respect Connor, but boy, did he pull a prank. I mean, an incredible prank on me that day. And when I learned about, his precondition, the fact that he was semi-deaf in one ear, I understood his awareness of cameras and microphones. And when he saw the boom microphone, he just played me like a yo-yo. I mean, he way with me. And it was one of the best sound bites I've ever gotten that will never see the light of day.
Yeah. Connor is a great guy. He would not care, by the way. He would not care.
Well, I hope not, because I didn't run it by him first before I put it in the book. But it just got me. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and that smile said it all. Like, oh man, did I punk you? And then later on, he did it again with another defensive lineman who saw the microphone and was, and Connor just went right into it again. And I thought, wow, that's stage presence. Stage presence.
Now, Bob, you started at NFL Films many years ago, and at the time,
leather helmets were in.
You were it. That was it. That was the only access that NFL fans had to NFL players. There wasn't today's modern technology where, let's be honest, you go into a football stadium, there's 60,000 video recorders there. Everybody's got one on their phone. Everyone has a camera and a video recorder with them in their back pocket. So you're kind of sharing it with everybody now. Now you've got the best technology and you're the closest and you're right on top of those guys. So you don't fall out of the picture. But how did you adapt? Knowing that others were doing when you started it, you were it. You were the only one. And now you're the top one, but one of 60,000. Did it change your job at all?
Well, it did in a way, but most of those people were not allowed behind the bench area for more than a few seconds. Network cameras and NFL Films cameras were the only two cameras allowed behind bench areas. Now, local television guys with connections with teams who had been around for many years, many NFL teams would just ignore them because they would see these people every day.
Yeah.
And they would have access, but generally I would just walk in, and if I needed to, I would strong arm my way into the position that I needed. And I would just point at my credential and say, I'm good back here. And players over the years became more sophisticated when it came to, oh, that's NFL Films. They're cool. We can be ourselves around them. Some teams never get it because the head coach sets the tone and players look at us as, you're the enemy. You're trying to steal our hearts, our souls. You're trying to take away our winning edge. Well, that's a pile of crap. However, it pervades the NFL, and it lasts to this day. There are still teams that don't want us around. I get it, but I don't. Come on. We're all on the same team here. The commissioner is my boss too. So allow us here. We're not going to put things on the air that are going to give away strategic secrets. Everybody runs the same plays. Everybody runs the same pass protections, the same coverages, the same defenses, the same blitz schemes. Everybody does the same stuff. Some teams do it better on a consistent basis. They go to playoff games and Super Bowls. You guys who are bitching about me being back here with a camera, overhearing what the quarterback is saying to you because you blew a protection and he just wound up on his ass. Am I allowed to say this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can say.
I want to hear that. I want to hear Ben tearing you a new one. And Ben get to a point, Roethlisberger, where he would just say, all right, I can outweight you guys. Okay. I would step off to the side, swing around, try to hang the boom in where Ben couldn't see it. Ben could see it. I mean, they're not dumb. So if they don't want you around, there's not a lot we can do about it if they're going to clam up. And but being there, hearing what's going on, hearing the adjustments. I mean, I didn't get this particular soundbite I'm about to describe, but a poor defensive back was sitting there after he got toasted on a double move touchdown, and he's sitting there and his coach is tearing him a new one. And when he walked away, his observation was, hey, they get paid too. That pretty much sums it up. We're all professionals here. Talking about the guy who beat him. Now, he might go out, shut him down the next 9 times, but the point of the drill is they're professionals too. They're professional football players. Excuse me. They came from the same colleges that we did. They came up the same way with the same aspirations and dreams.
Now, when you're telling that story, Bob, you would think over the years that NFL Films has developed into what it has developed into, it would have eased. I think today it's worse than ever when you're talking about that sentiment of teams, Hard Knocks. You were on the ground floor of Hard Knocks. Nobody wants it, but but you were,
I developed.
Nobody wants to be on the show. because these guys are so secretive. And so, and you're right, they all run the same stuff. You're not protecting state secrets. Why do you think that is, that they haven't developed some kind of trust for what you guys have done over the years?
Again, it comes down, excuse me, it comes down to the head coach. If the head coach identifies crews, television crews, as distractions, then they're distractions. And it's hard, even for veteran players, to dismiss that. And a lot of veteran players will say, well, that's the excuse I needed not to talk to you folks or be myself around you. Hard Knocks is a different animal. It's very invasive. The very first Hard Knocks back in 2001, when Steve Sabol called me into his office and said, Ange, I've got a show for you. You're going to be gone all summer. You're going to be with the Baltimore Ravens. I said, okay, this is going to be good. He said, you know Brian Billick? I said, very well. I mean, Brian, but Brian embraced it because Brian had his team, his Super Bowl championship team in Baltimore.
Yeah.
He wanted the attention. He wanted the publicity. The Ravens were craving, a national sort of recognition that they didn't get even when they won the Super Bowl because of, some off-field things that were going on with some of their players. Bottom line, Brian embraced it. Day one, we had robotic cameras in his office, and he said, look at this. He stood up and he moved around the room and he said, look at these cameras. They're following me. This is how our camp is going to be this year, just like this. And our players are going to be ready to defend their Super Bowl title, because if they can put up with all of this, then, on Sunday when they line up opposite an opponent and you know what he wants to do to you, and vice versa, it's going to be a lot easier to focus, because this is what they're going to go through all summer. Cameras everywhere, in meeting rooms, every place but the medical room. That was the only room that my crews were not allowed to go to. And I understood that, and it never came up. And I remember Steve Sabol was very concerned about profanity in the show. He was concerned, and because he felt the NFL office would be concerned. Well, I said, Steve, this is a training camp. You're going to have profanity almost every other word. Every seventh word is going to begin with F.
Yes, I can confirm that.
And so there we were shooting, and every Wednesday morning, we would screen the rough cut prior to the Wednesday night screening of Hard Knocks. And the entire brain trust, everybody of importance with the Ravens was there, both Models, Brian Billick, PR executives, et cetera, right on down the line. And after the first show, they said nothing. After the second show, before the second show, Steve Sabol made a deliberate effort with his producing staff. Make sure you limit the profanity. Let's take the profanity out of the show. Let's try to avoid it. The league office hadn't said anything about it, but Steve was concerned about it. After screening the second show, Brian got up and said, great show, Bob, but we need a few more gratuitous F words in there. Well, from that moment on, NFL Films and Steve Sabol had no concerns about the profanity.
Very, very nice. If he got it, if Billick got it, that there was an upside to this, that you're on a national platform. And when Hard Knocks started, I don't know if we're using the word platform yet, but it has become such a buzzword, we have to use it now. If he understood that, why don't they have a Hard Knocks team named yet this year? John pointed out, he's right. It seems like none of the 32 teams want to do it. The NFL put rules in place that you could be eliminated for consideration if you did this, that, and the other thing. Well, the only teams that are like we can force you to do this thing is 4 out of the 32, and the 4 don't want any part of it. Why didn't anybody get it that this can be a good thing for your organization if you're branding, another 2023 word, if you're branding your organization? Why wouldn't they want to be on Hard Knocks?
I think it's because it's not new anymore. And Robert Saleh with the Jets knows what's going to happen. If and when the Jets are picked above objection to be the participant this year. And Robert Saleh is looking at his team thinking, I've got this quarterback who has a history of, not necessarily being nice around cameras that are trying to get sound bites. And I've had experiences with Aaron where, he would just push the camera out of the way once. And Mike McCarthy said, what are you doing? And I don't want that here. And okay. And okay, we at that point see who's running that situation. And I like Mike. But his quarterback doesn't want the camera around.
Yeah.
Well, now Aaron's in New York, and Robert Sala's got a pretty damn good defensive team, I think. I don't know that they are as close to a championship as New York Jets fans want to believe, but they look pretty darn balanced. And you plug in this quarterback, if he's got anything left, and chances are he does, because he's the most accurate passer I think I've ever seen.
Yep.
If he wants to play, and if the hallucinogenic drugs he's using are giving him insights into how to find secondary and tertiary receivers, then the Jets are going to have a shot.
Right. Yeah.
I think again, distractions. Robert has never been around anything of this. Is that his name? Robert Saleh, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's never been around anything this invasive, and it is invasive because the cameras are there. They don't go home at night. The cameras live in the facility, and when they transition from camp to their stadium setup or their facility setup, I don't even know if the Jets do that, but the cameras remain there. The people remain there every day. And I don't know. I don't understand. I think it's just inexperience. I think some people who've been through it know that, hey, I can survive this. We can live through this. We can actually use it to our betterment. But the ones who've never experienced it and have watched others, I've heard coaches say, I can't imagine why anybody would let this happen.
Yeah. It seems like the younger ones, Bob, don't want any part of it, whether they don't have confidence in themselves or they don't have full confidence in their hold over the organization. I specifically see it with younger coaches. Now, one guy is always who I love as a coach, and he kind of doubled down on what I think of Bill Parcells. He didn't want the cameras around either, and he's as entrenched as it could be. Your interactions with Bill Parcells and the fact that he's going to take advantage if he can take advantage.
Bill was difficult. One of our cameramen had a famous run-in with him, and Bill could be very intimidating. There was nothing subtle about his approach. Get that camera out of here. And he would say it with conviction and flames in his eyes. And Bill looked like the kind of guy who would step off the sideline and come over and punch out a cameraman who was violating his space. I'm not sure where Bill learned that. Maybe Howard Schnellenberger, maybe one of those people in his past where this is your sacred space and don't allow anybody in it. I did come to understand Bill a little bit later when he explained about the sanctity of the locker room and how he didn't want communists, as he called them.
Oh,
he didn't want.
He called you a commie?
Well, no, he called somebody who asked him a question after he'd won a game, a reporter. He said, there you have it, a communist, right here, And
man, Bill
always felt that, okay, if you're in our locker room, if you're in our space, you should be part of our team. And that's not the job of the
No, it's not the job.
So Bill never got that. But when Bill became a general manager, I got stuck one day going into the Dolphin locker room. And I'm not sure how this played out, but I think Bill was a GM there for a while. Do I have this right?
Yeah, he was. I don't know if that was his title, but he was president.
Might have been
he was
president.
in charge. He was in charge. So,
and there I was in a post-game locker room, and he walked in, and I'm just sitting there holding my camera, thinking, "All right, here it comes." He's going to grab the back of my hair, and throw me out of here, and we're going to have a physical confrontation. And none of it happened. He just looked at me, walked on. He finally accepted the fact that people are going to be in post-game locker rooms, and by right now, because the broadcast committee of the National Football League years ago opened up the locker rooms to NFL films and post games. Now, we still in many cities have to check with the PR person, and lots of times the media relations executive would wait a while before letting us in, didn't want us in there for the immediacy, that's what I was always there to get, that immediacy. When the team has won the game, they've achieved their objective, and everything is supposed to be good. And that is a jubilant moment in most locker rooms.
Yeah.
But lots of teams would still make us wait until that moment was over to come in.
Bob, I want
Executive Vice President of Football Operations. That's
okay. So
Parcells for the Dolphins.
He was a honcho. He was and he could have, tapped me on the shoulder.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Given me the, and what am I going to say? I'm sitting here holding a camera, which kind of looks like a weapon. I don't want to ram the lens into his face. So but it goes on. It persists. It's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think, until teams start getting fined for doing it. You don't let our camera into the locker room in a timely fashion, you're going to pay a substantial fine every week. Will that ever happen? Probably not.
We shall see. All right, I got a personal question for you.
Sure.
Because of something you said when we introduced you. You said walked away after the Eagles Super Bowl and ending on a high note. You're a Pittsburgh guy. You were born in Pittsburgh. You went to high school in Pittsburgh. There were some pretty good teams in Pittsburgh when you were a younger man, if I remember correctly.
When I was growing up in the 1960s, the Steelers stunk.
Okay.
I graduated in 1970. Now, they had started drafting people. In 69, they brought in this big defensive lineman named Joe Green from North Texas State. And that went on for about 6 years in a row, where every single season, the Steelers added future Hall of Famers to their roster. By the time I was a sophomore at Penn State was, Pittsburgh, the Steelers were getting pretty good. I actually had to drive up to my college apartment at State College to watch the Immaculate Reception because we couldn't get it because of the blackout in Pittsburgh. And I drove my neighbor up, who was a Penn Stater as well, and he jumped up and down on my roommate's bed and broke the frame. And Franco ran it in. True story. And but the Steelers stunk. But then all of a sudden, beginning in 72 until the end of the decade, 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons, I don't know that will ever be duplicated. But during my professional life, I got very close to the Minnesota Vikings and I did the last 25 years of their highlight films and went to Japan with them, went to Mankato with them, went to England with them. And, and of course, now I lived in the Philadelphia area. So I got to know Andy Reid, and I liked Andy. I liked Dick Vermeil a lot. These were good men, good people, and they ran great programs. So people would say, well, who are your favorite? What's your favorite team? Well, I have favorite teams. And in most cases, professionally, it's who would allow me the most access.
Yeah.
The coaches who would allow me the most access became my favorite teams. And that was Denny Green and, future coaches in Minnesota.
Denny was great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just tremendous guy. Dick Vermeil and then Andy Reid and, subsequent generations of Eagles coaches here. And then my Pittsburgh teams. I mean, I always got along fairly well with Mike Tomlin. He never really ran me out of there. I'd have issues with Ben Roethlisberger and some assistant coaches occasionally, but Mike and he would look at the camera, and Mike knew how to play that camera.
Yeah.
And he knew how to. So answer to the question, I'm here in Philly now. And I've, I'm
an Eagle fan. The reason I ask is because I went through it. I'm a former New Yorker, but I've been in Philadelphia 33 years now. But some people still hold it against me because I wasn't born here. It wasn't a hospital delivery of Jody McDonald. So you're not a true Philadelphian.
You're not a true Philadelphian.
Sounded to me like you were a true Philadelphian. You go end on a high note with an Eagles Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
You got your colors as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I got to know Doug Peterson because Doug was one of Andy's key assistants for many years. And when Doug came here, I knew Doug when he was a backup quarterback to Brett Favre in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. So I was in a meeting once with him and Holmgren and Favre, and they're going over the first 20 play calls, which was, a kind of a thing that West Coast offenses do all the time. But I knew Doug I actually was on my golf course one day, and this great, big, tall, lanky kid was on the range, and I was going from 9 to 10, and he was walking toward 10. So I sped up my golf cart because I really didn't want to play with anybody that day. And then I looked at him. I said, "You want to throw your bag on?" And sure. So he hits his drive after I hit mine. I said, "Did you get it all?" He goes, "Yeah, I did." We get down there. I hit mine about 220, 225. I was feeling pretty proud of that. This guy hit his drive about 290 yards. Turns out it was Josh Peterson. It was Doug's son.
Wow.
So that became a talking point for me with Doug every time I would see him. I'd say, "I played golf with your son. He's playing a different sport than I am."
Yeah.
I mean, he outdrove
Josh just signed with the Jags, by the way.
I saw that. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him because he could have been a professional golfer. This was when he was a freshman.
290. I'm impressed.
Oh,
now here's my question, Bob, because I used to cover the Vikings. You ever get a ticket going down 169 to get the
no. I avoided the tight ends booze joint there because too many people got arrested
every
there.
year. Some Viking player would get a ticket racing down to Mankato because they would wait till the last minute for training camp to check into Gage Hall. Nobody wanted to be there, and they would all race down 169 going 100 every year.
I hear you. I went there quite a few times, never had a problem there, but I was more concerned about the former tight ends place where they would all go on Wednesday night after practice and get loaded, and then invariably a Viking would
Joe Sensor,
Joe Sensor. I actually convinced
Westchester's own, by the way, locally, Westchester University.
I convinced Peter King to do stand-ups once at Joe Sensor's bar.
Really?
Yeah, we of course had.
I like Peter. I respect Peter. I'm a guy who reads his column first day. Soon as it's up, boom, up. Peter King funny? No. I would never believe that. You tell me he killed it doing stand up. I got to see the film. You had to record it, Mr. Cinematographer. You got to produce that film for me. I refuse to believe Peter King funny.
Well, I did it for another producer, and he wasn't that funny. He did his stand-ups very straight, but as it turns out, I forgot all about the alcohol in the shot concept. And 3 of the 6 that we shot, we weren't allowed to use because we didn't want to put, the kegs of beer in the and the pitchers of beer. No, Peter did not. I don't think Peter indulged at all. I did while I was working, but
Peter indulging, that we know, because every single week his column's got some kind of new beer, new IPA, something he likes to drink. So we know he indulges. I just don't see him as a funny guy.
No, well, his job was not to be funny. His job was to get through the copy and set up the segment and then do a tag for the end. But
all right, very good. The name of the book is NFL Off Camera with our friend Bob Angelo. Here's the question I want to wrap up on.
All righty.
And I don't know if you've ever thought of this before. I'm sure if I give you a second, you'll think of it. It'll come to you like that. You filmed thousands of hours of NFL action on the field, right there, right on top of it, getting the point of view from the players with your live mic as well. But what play did you film that you couldn't believe as you looked through the lens actually transpired? You go, whoa. Rewind. I got to see this again. I don't believe what my eye just saw through the lens of my camera. That didn't actually happen in reality. And then you went back and looked, damn,
well,
it did. Yeah,
I will give you a handful.
Okay.
The very first time I was in Tyreek Hill's presence when he was a rookie, he caught a bubble screen right in front of me and I was shooting action and he ran right out of my frame. And
you couldn't keep up with him.
And Joe Delaney once did that to me, but he was right in front of me and all of a sudden he was gone and I had to catch up with him. I immediately walked over to the bench and said, "I need a flip card." And someone said, "Why? I said, "Who was that guy who just caught that pass?" It was, "He's fast, isn't he?" I said, "Oh my goodness." That's one. I was shooting the playoff game between the Giants and the 49ers in San Francisco when Joe Montana was quarterbacking the 49ers against, I want to say, not even Jim Kelly that year. I think Kelly got hurt and wasn't available, so he was against the backup. But I could be wrong about that, but I know it was the I'm sorry, it was 49ers Giants. What am I thinking?
Giants.
49ers Giants. It might have been the backup quarterback, not
Sims.
but
Hostetler?
West Virginia. Yeah, Hostetler.
Yeah.
And it looked as if the 49ers were going to walk away with a win. So Montana drops this throw in the fourth quarter, and I'm shooting him, and I see Bubba Paris blow his block on Leonard Marshall. And Leonard Marshall arrived and hit Montana so hard that it almost took my breath away watching it. You could hear the air come out of the stadium. And I just stayed right there because I knew he's not moving. And he just sat there and sat there and sat there. And I think he missed 18 months of football after that. But I've never seen a hit like that in my life. It's the most violent collision I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I've been around, for a long time.
Yeah.
I saw Lambert and Jack Tatum and Ray Lewis, and that was the most violent hit I've ever seen. And that shot has been used so many times. As for I shot one game-winning play. It didn't turn out to be as big as the Immaculate Reception, but the Colts had a bouncing ball touchdown in Indianapolis once. But the plays I just mentioned are the two that really come to mind, because people who are watching Tyreek Hill or people of that stature on television don't understand how fast these guys are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then people who, again, see the sanitized view from, camera 1, 2, or 3 up high, don't understand what that hit felt like. I could hear that from where I was. And the crowd, the air just got sucked out of Candlestick Park. And, but Joe came back and played again for the 49ers and wound up playing in Kansas City and extended his Hall of Fame career. But those shots come to mind immediately. Yeah.
All right, let's end it on the Philly special, Bob. I think we had Ray on. I should have asked Ray. I think Ray's son caught the actual Nick Foles, Doug Peterson interaction with Philly, which is weird. But
he was probably the wire cam.
Yeah, the wire cam
on the quarterback or on the head coach. I was standing right behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can find that image anywhere, I was standing right behind them, and it wasn't my job to shoot him at the time. So, and I'm standing there with my sound man, and I turned to him, I said, "What do you think this is going to be?" And and of course it got hailed as the most incredible play call in the history of pro football. Well, let me tell you this, that was the easiest play call in the history of pro football, because you can bet your life that Belichick looked through 3 years of Eagles red zone and knew every single play that the Eagles might run in that situation. They sure as hell didn't know that one.
I've never seen that one on tape before. Exactly.
And so, that was simple. And the fact that Doug called it, though, on 4th and 1 rather than taking the points told me we're here to win this game. We're not just here to put on a good show. We're not just here to, advance our growth as a team. We're here to win this damn game. So let's win it. And I love that.
Yeah.
The name of his book is NFL Off Camera, collection of short stories that Bob gathered over the decades that he was on NFL sidelines. I am sure that it is a phenomenal read. Bob, we want to appreciate you jumping on with us for a couple minutes here today. Since you're retired, we may call on you from time to time. Go, hey, Bob, did you watch this? How would you have shot this game? We may hit you up during the season. Thank you very much.
Feel free. I watch Red Zone every week for 7.5 hours.
Yeah. Here's one thing, and we're talking to 3 relatively older gentlemen right here. I couldn't host Red Zone. What do you got to do? Wear Depends? He's never off camera. There are no commercial breaks on Red Zone. At least here on Bird 365, I got 2.5 minutes to run upstairs if I got to go. That's one of the best things.
Scott Hansen, baby. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking they have him hooked up like an astronaut so he can go right into his.
Could be. Bob, great stuff. Thank you very much for jumping on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Bob
Bob.
Angelo, longtime cinematographer for NFL films. His book is NFL Off Camera. Pretty good title, as a matter of fact, for the collection of short stories that he tells about those many years of experience at NFL films. All right, McMullen McDonald coming back. We still got a couple of segments. Keep it here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku? Buy your